Hi, this is Kyle Grossmiller from Pure Storage. I'm a senior solutions architect, and today we're going to walk through a four-part demo series where we're going to automate a FlashStack deployment with the combination of SmartConfig and VMware Cloud Foundation. Now, our overall goal here is we're going to start with some just racked, powered, and cabled UCS as well as Pure Storage components, and then we're going to end with a fully functional VMware Cloud Foundation environment ready to service out workload domains to tenant users. Really, there's three key things, right, that go into that. The first, as I mentioned, is we're going to deploy FlashStack with ESXi via SmartConfig. So we'll start with some unconfigured UCS gear and end with ESXi installed on top of those. Our next phase will be preparing ESXi host with VMware Cloud Builder, and then we'll end with using workload domains on Pure Storage. But to start us off, we're going to start with these action items here. So I gave you a brief overview. I'll show you a hardware diagram in terms of what we're using, and then we'll actually walk into a live demo of SmartConfig itself. This is our cabling diagram. This is basically one of the more complicated FlashStacks you can build. We have Nexus 9Ks, fabric interconnects, MDS switches, and then of course Pure Storage on the bottom. Our SmartConfig guide gives detailed topology diagrams in terms of how you're going to wire it up. And once you do that, really SmartConfig breaks down into these four key steps. Again, we're going to cover the first two within this section of our technical demo, and then section 2 and 3 and 4 will go into the other later components. SmartConfig itself, though, needs to be connected to this unconfigured FlashStack on an isolated native VLAN that is no VLAN tagging, so something like a dumb switch where you plug all the management ports into it. SmartConfig itself can then be deployed on something like a laptop, or in this example, a single ESXi host, right? So here you can see we have SmartConfig up and running. We've set up some static networking on that untagged VLAN. In addition to that, we have our Pure Storage flash array, just online, but as you can see, there's nothing else on it. And then here we can see our actual FlashStack SmartConfig GUI. Now, the first step here is we're actually going to enable our DHCP scope for SmartConfig. And because all of our UCS gear is set up in DHCP auto discovery mode and plugged into the same switch as SmartConfig, that's going to enable us to pick it up on this DHCP scope so that SmartConfig can then configure it for us. One step that's manual, we are working diligently to add automated flash array setup, but you do have to manually put in an IP address as well as some Pure Storage credentials to add a flash array here. Here we can see an MDS has already been picked up. And while we wait for the other components to get picked up, let's look at one of the other neat features that I think SmartConfig offers, which is an ISO library. So this is where all of our firmware for all of our underlying UCS components is going to lie. You can see MDS, Nexus, UCS. In addition to that, we also have the capability to stage and deploy, in our case, for this example, vSphere ESXi. So you can host ISO files as well as a kickstart script. So you can upload everything there and have it all in one place for repeatable deployments. You can see we've picked up both of our Nexus 9Ks as well as our MDS switches. I'll pause here while we get our fabric interconnects. There we go. So now those have also been picked up by SmartConfig. And now we can select our deployment option, which again is basically everything below here. Now, since everything's been discovered, we now move on to phase 2, which is the configuration phase. And it's going to ask for a few important items. First and foremost is an NTP server, a DNS server. We'll give a root password or management password for all of our UCS components. And then last but not least, of course, here we will also select a flash array in this top section. I think one of the really neat things about this tool as well is that you only really need to go through this configuration phase once. And right here, as you can see, we are selecting VMware ESXi 7 and the associated kickstart script, which we'll go into later. And then here's our SMTP server, MDS Nexus, where we can define and select our desired firmware as well as kickstart scripts for all of these. What I was saying earlier, though, is you really only need to do this once, and then you can export everything to a JSON file for automated usage moving forward. In the advanced section of this configuration page as well, you do have the ability to specify what VLANs are required for your environment, which I'm doing here. For VMware Cloud Foundation, we need management, vMotion, and vSAN. With that, if we click next, that will kick us into the initialization phase of the demo. And what that's going to do is take our configuration items that we specified, including firmware versions, kickstart scripts, and upload them and configure them. That concludes part 1 of this demo. Come by for part 2 to look at how we deploy this FlashStack via SmartConfig. Thank you.